I have to say the streets in Santa Monica are quite very, very peppy, very different than Gardena streets.
How's that?
How's that? Well, the streets in Santa Monica, they're quite clean and very lots of things going on over there. And Gardena's so ghost quiet down there.
Huh.
Yeah, too quiet for its own good. But I like it. I like the quietness. You just get a moment of peace when it's that quiet. It's almost you can hear God Himself, if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fascinating.
Did you grow up in Gardena?
Did I grow up in Gardena? Yes, I grew up in Gardena in 20 years. And, well, people always ask me if are you sure you're from Gardena? Are you certain you're from there? Oh boy, I'm positive. Because everybody they ask me, are you sure you're from Gardena? Are you sure are you from Texas or you're from
You
Arkansas?
seem to have a little bit of an accent.
Yeah, I get that a lot, but you're not the first one to tell me, and certainly won't be the last to tell me. I don't know. It just is for what it is. My voice just comes out like that. Excuse me. No, I grew up with a lot of people, a lot older folks, and I rarely spend time with my contemporaries in the high school or middle school days, if that makes sense.
Did you have friends as a kid?
Well, yeah, not friends where you go and have fun with them or be over at their house, or I rarely had any friends, if you say, as a young kid. Mostly I just, like I said, I hung around with my elders in the high school or middle school or the Career Transition Center. I just spoke to them. And I don't know, that just drawn to me. I don't know, I never spent time with my contemporaries in the high school, and if I did, it's either in the classroom setting or in the PE setting, like adapted PE. It's an alternative for physical education. It's very interesting.
Were you a good student?
Was I a good student? I was fair enough. I was a fair student. Wouldn't say good, but I can't say I was bad. So I was just fair. Let me see.
You've been diagnosed with autism?
With autism, yes, at the age of 18, which is interesting. I always thought, well, I was just weird or anything like that, but it connects the dots. That is the autism. I just thought, because everybody thought I was just bizarre or weird, and especially, well, my folks. But it didn't really cross my mind that it was the autism. You just don't think about those things, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It just was a way of life.
Were there parts of school or of childhood that were difficult for you?
Social. Well, Well, I'm thinking about those things in my head, and a lot of, as you can see how my brain works, a lot of these things, these reels of memories and flashbacks come in my head so quickly it's hard to recount. But one in particular, what I have to say, is with my contemporaries, it was either just too open or too closed, too much of everything, and well, I did not fit in at the time. Come to think about it, I never did fit in, which I guess it makes sense to me. And some folks, they coin it as an armor, a badge of armor. For me, it's just this for what it is. I really don't like to wave that flag around so much because it's just unnecessary for me. I hope I'm being concise. I hope I am being coherent and another word for it, concise and coherent, because I tend to be a blabbermouth, always talking here and there, because a lot of things are racing in my head, and I just love to talk. I rarely talk to people.
Really?
So it's just a happy day when I speak to just a contemporary
Well,
or an associate.
You're probably going to speak to 100,000 people here.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Do you live with your parents still?
Oh, I live with my mother. I live with my 2 brothers and my sister. The 5 of us, mostly 4, we're like roommates. So we all do our own thing. I do my own thing at home. My sister does her own thing. My 2 brothers, they do their own thing. So we do we do spend time together, but that's during supper time, dinner time. But most of the time I'm either in my room or my sister's in the kitchen, my brother's in their bedroom playing the computer games, and, well, you know, we got our own little lives going on.
Are you the oldest, middle,
Yeah.
youngest?
No, I'm the eldest.
Hmm.
Yeah. My sister's the second eldest, and the 2 boys are the babies. Well, not so much babies because they're big now, bigger than I am.
Mm-hmm. When you say do your thing, what do you mean by that?
Do your thing independently. Do your own thing. I mean, doing my own thing, is either I just watch TV, read a book, be productive, type a story with your fat fingers, a little story on the word processor or computer, or draw a picture, or, well, talk to somebody on the cell phone, a telephone or cell phone. I just talk to my contemporaries on the cell phone because sometimes I get bored, like my friends. I like to talk to Matthew and Evan. Evan and Matthew are my associates and friends. They're my publishers, too. They're very good young men.
When you say publisher, what are you publishing?
A book. I published a book called, well, it's a collection of stories and other obscurities. It's called An Odyssey of Dingbats. No brainer. It's just basically a schizophrenic dime store novel. And these collection of stories, all these little bizarre stories, what have you. Why a lady's going through, a crowd's going through an existential crisis. An old lady's got the shits. And, well, and an old man's looking for his golden elephant. So it's one of those little stories.
And you wrote these?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
They're fun.
Are you selling this?
Yes, I sold these on the Amazon. I have 3 copies of the book at my favorite bookstore. Have you ever been to this bookstore before? It's called Storybooks Cafe at Echo Park.
I have not been there.
You've been there?
I have not.
You haven't been there? Oh, you should go down there sometime. It's a pip. I love it. Greg, the barista, he has a bald head and got graphic images on his head, tattoos, and you would think he would be the meanest and the most scariest person in the world, but on the contrary, he's a very funny guy, nice person, which is very a no-brainer, a 360 moment. I've been through a lot of 360 moments, I will say, especially going out and about and seeing my contemporaries. You would think some of these people who wear lots of dark clothing and lots of these kind of obscure, punky clothes, you'd think they'd be scum of the earth. And I will say, yes, some are, but some of them are just, well, they're just deep down in their hearts, they're children. And some of them have not gotten over high school because everybody acts like they're in high school. I don't like to be in that kind of mentality, being in high school. I've already done high school. I don't need to go back.
How old are you, Omar?
24 years of age.
24.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've written a book?
Yes.
And it's available on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave a link in the description.
Oh.
Maybe you'll get some sales this way.
Oh, well, yeah, that's all right. I don't really like to put all my eggs in that basket. As much as people buy the book, that's good, and I'm glad about it. But I got it out, and that's it, and I'm happy about it. I think if you did something, if you just did that one thing and just got it out there, then your heart is set. And you don't have to worry about if anybody's going to read it, and don't have to worry about, well, people going to like you. You said what you said, and there you go. You let it go, and you go and do the next step.
Can you give me an example of maybe one of your stories, or maybe a short one?
Oh, actually, I got a copy. Well, I'll tell you one. One story I wrote is a funny story of an orange crayon going through an existential crisis. So
I'd love to hear it.
Oh, you would like to hear it? I wish I could read it to you, but it's in that bag right there. But
you want to grab it?
Sure, I'll read it to you. My friend Christopher Seischig loves that story. Have you heard of Christopher Seischig?
I have not.
Thank you. He's a writer too. He's my friend and my colleague. He wrote a good book called Creations on Art and Unbecoming.
This is your book?
Yeah. It got a little dirty on the way, but this is my book. An Odyssey of Dingbats, a collection of stories and other obscurities. Volume 1. Indeed. Anyhow, let me show you the story that's quite obscure and hilarious. I'll show you. There you go.
I didn't know you were an author.
Yes. I'm an author. I'm like a jack of all trades, a Renaissance man. Indeed. I'm an author, a writer, a painter, and through a human being at the end. Confessions of a Crayon, the orange crayon. And I took that picture using I learned this from Willenberg CTC. Miss Susan showed me how to take these interesting images where you get the little camera and you just angle it on the frame. And what you do is you learn how to have the eye of the point of view of a certain object or just the angle. It's a very interesting thing. I learned about these kind of middle shots, the back shots, and then these right here point of view. So a very interesting thing to learn at the time, back in 2019 to 2022. That was about 4 years ago. Anyway. Now let me shut up and read the story, because like I said, I'm a blabber mouth. So it goes like this, mister. I understand this will be bizarre coming from a piece of crayon, orange-colored, but I don't give a shit. People are unusual and nasty as far as I've witnessed. For crying out loud, who in their right mind sticks a crayon in someone's anus? It is beyond me. See, this is already getting weird. Told you so. I mean, somebody's got to say something. Perhaps it's going to be me to tell it. I hope I don't get interrupted by the red crayon, that feckin' blabbermouth. Can't stand him. Always got something to say. Never clear what he says. Always stopping mid-sentence. Every time I see that crayon, I distance myself from him. He's got something to say, but I'm not one to listen to his bullshit. Sorry if it sounds harsh, but I refuse to waste air with an idiot. So complaining about people would be the appropriate position for me. So, where was I? Yes, sometimes late at night stuck in some purse, backpack, wooden box closet, or under a bed, I hear these people have sex. How do I know about this? Well, I wasn't born yesterday. I'm not a moron like the red crayon. You know, I pay attention to what's in front of me. I listen word for word to what those folks say to each other and about each other. Scandalous things happen right in front of me. Episodes of violent sex, and lots of wild sex indeed. Like right now, I'm spilled out on the floor of the closet with nothing to do but be a voyeur. I'm watching this big feller howling from the top of his lungs as if he was some werewolf. God, give me a break. He's wearing a collar and some kind of black suit made out of leather, and he's on his knees. He howls like a damn wolf. He crawls around the red velvet carpet floor like some dog, while his mistress in a bubble pink dress walks him. She grips a leash pulling on his neck. If she commands to stand, well, he stands. If she commands to roll, he rolls. If she commands to eat shit, well, you already know the answer. He rolls over, gets spanked, gets hurt. It doesn't bug him. Rather, strangely satisfy him. That gal in the waxy pink dress is paying him attention, and he loves every moment of it. He lives only to serve her. He is a slave. If I had limbs, joints, and fingertips, I would kick that dirty dog and command him to get up and straighten his back. Folks like him are lucky to have knees, legs, and arms, and fingertips. He can communicate and express his feelings. I don't have that option. I have optics, a brain, and a heart, but no legs, no arms. I'm nothing at all, just the thing people use to press on a piece of paper. They drag me around and give life to paper, but I have none. I, too, am a slave. So that's the orange crayon for you.
I love it. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. But I'm so proud of this. I've came a long way with this thing. It's become a life of its own. I can say all sorts of things about this book, but at the end of the day, this work, this oeuvre speaks for itself.
Will you be writing more?
Oh, yes. Oh, boy, I'm a busy bird. Always busy all the time. Right now I'm working on the second one. That at the same time, my process is so different. I'll tell you this. When you get so bored and you feel like you're stuck, you just let that be and you work on another thing. Then you work on that, and if that doesn't work for you, you can take a little bit of that thing that you wrote, even if it's a whole paragraph or a short sentence, you can take that and put it into the other one. So it's a very interesting thing to do when you have two medias that you feel like this is not working for this. Maybe I can switch this and put it in here. Then if that doesn't work, I go and work on the other one, and then the other one. And if writing doesn't work, I do the drawing. And I have about, I believe, 500, 600 computer images, painting on Microsoft Word of all these pictures online. And it's fun. It's become my world. In a way, I've become each and every one of these little faces because I draw lots of obscure faces, monsters and happy people and sad and just all these interesting graphic images. I've become those images. I am those images, if that makes sense.
It does.
Sometimes I have to say, when I write and when I read and when I paint, sometimes I get so lost. It's so good you just get lost in the process. It's a strange thing.
Creativity is a journey.
It is. And I like it. I like being in cloud cuckoo land, if it makes sense. It's one of those things you cannot explain. Art should not be explainable. If people want to make sense, be psychological, pinpoint this, that, or the other, but you can't. You just don't make sense of it all. It's like insanity or sanity. You just don't make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like works that do not make sense. And if I do have a question, I just ask the person who wrote it certain things, but not the whole thing, because I'm sure it's a work that's not supposed to make sense. Oh boy, I tell you, sometimes I do get flack when I just speak up and just speak my mind and my heart, especially when I see my contemporaries talking their heart out and their brains out in these little readings here and there. They get really bored with me, and sometimes they lose track because they're very short-sighted. A lot of people, have you noticed when you go out and about, and especially today, a lot of people can be very short-sighted. They say, well, what did you say? I'm sorry, I lost track, and then I have to say, I said this, that, or the other. And then, oh, okay, And then I'm thinking maybe they just need more sleep or they got to lay off the sauce. And believe you and me, I had a couple here and there, but I just can't go into that anymore, you know. It's just not worth it being on the sauce.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a fun thing. This thing has given me a purpose in a way,
That's great.
and I like it. And especially with this one, if this thing would have never been published, because I've been shopping around on emails, these two particular independent publishing presses. I wish I could name them, but I don't want to be the type to name and they say, you said this about me, this, that, the other. I get into trouble. I get a lot of trouble for saying certain things.
You're smart to...
Yes. So just these two independent publishing. One said, I'd love to work with you here and there, but my hands are tied. The other one said, oh, please send it out to me and we'll take a look at it. Months later, past 3 or 4 months, no word from them. And I've been just under the rug, like, what am I going to do? And then the existential part comes in and thinking, what if I die and this thing has not come out? You know, what if I die? And before I leave this world, this earth, I've accomplished nothing. If I can accomplish one thing, maybe getting one book out, and I think I did my job. And I think that's enough for me.
Yeah, you should be very proud.
And I am very proud, believe you and me. People don't like that, to be proud, but why not? Why don't you be proud of what you've done? You know,
should be.
Especially if the subject matter is a little obscure here and there. That's all right. Own what you said, own what you say, and own what you've created. That's yours and yours only. Because, well, the other person didn't create it, you did. And that's important, to own what you do. But boy, oh boy, it's amazing. It really is amazing. I wish I could show you all sorts of things, because me talking about it here or there and painting a picture of what it's like, it doesn't really do it justice when you're really at the very core, the moment there. And boy, it's an emotional whammo. It just hits you in the guts and the face too, because you just like, did I do that? Golly, what just happened? It's all so fast and so exciting.
Creativity is fun.
It is. And I'd never get bored. Some people, they say they get these blocks, writer's blocks, and all sort of, I just...
Do you get writer's blocks?
No. How can I tend to get... I think for me it's just I get bored. And if it just doesn't, to the point where it's just not working for me at the moment, I just drop it and leave it. Let it rest, let it breathe, and do the next thing. How can you be bored, and how can that block you? Just do something else. And I can never be bored.
I like how sleep is like a reset.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up the next day and it's
yes.
like your mind is fresh.
Exactly. Right in the morning, right there in the morning, you just flashes and reels of images of all these people here and there and scenarios. One in particular, I have a strange little dream I had of Gumby. You know Gumby?
Sure.
The little Gumby and Pokey going through one an existential crisis, and Gumby shooting up heroin, which is kind of bizarre. Gumby, I didn't think you'd be shooting up heroin. What the heck is wrong with you? And then there's another dream. Then I had a dream about, these little, a donut hole, and then a hand going through the donut. And then this hand becomes pink, and then the fingertips they turned into little sausages, and these little sausages becomes worms, and the worms become these little gummy worms, and then all sorts of things. And then there is one flashing reel when somebody's having crazy, lustrous relations with each other. One in particular person, I don't want to mention their names because, like I said, I'm going to be in trouble. And I tend to get in trouble for saying certain things, so I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Good for you.
Thank you. You got to watch your mouth. But in this scene is just a particular lady, very well-known actress, older lady, having lustrous relations with a young man, violent, passionate sex. It's called, the lady she's sitting on the mattress with a black satin, almost like a black satin robe, and the young man is naked, and he's got a leash around him, looking like a dog, like in that story, like a dog, and he's just barking, and then he crawls, going forward here and there, and she's just like this, and then the rest is basically, he does certain, I'll call it oral sex. He does oral sex on the lady. And so that kind of weird dreams happen. So it's just, I don't know what is telling me. Is a premonition if something's going to happen, or should I write the story? And 50% is I write the story.
That's great.
And it's fun. Do you ever get dreams like that?
I don't seem to remember my dreams anymore. I used to when I was younger.
Oh.
I wish I did. They're fantastic.
Ain't that something?
I really miss remembering my dreams.
Oh.
They're so wild and crazy and fun.
Yes, they are. And some of it, it's a little message. Maybe it's telling you something, that this is going to happen, or it's already happened.
So sometimes when I wake up in the middle of asleep, then I'll be in the middle of a dream, and that's my only taste of it.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. And I wonder, too, I had this weird dream about Van Gogh and Franz Kafka. If anybody's heard of Franz Kafka and Van Gogh, this dream is these two men, they're at the pub, and they're drinking together. They're drinking, and I guess this scenario is, what if they both met and stuff, and what would happen if they met? You know, what kind of interesting adventures and journeys they would have gone to? What would they've done? What kind of story would Kafka write, and what kind of painting would Van Gogh paint if he met Kafka? Now that's a very interesting collaboration of sorts, even a collaboration that would have been, and I bet it would have been just amazing. But that's just, it only exists in a dream, and dream only. But at least it exists in dream, and that's fine. That's yours to dream of and yours to take, and no one else to see. And that's fine. You can live with that. Yes.
Were there people in your life that were like good role models, or people that you looked up to when you were young?
A lot of people, but I will name a few. Well, there's my parents. I got my disposition, my pragmatism from my mother. My father, I got his stubbornness. I'm very stubborn. I can be very stubborn. Writing. Has anybody heard of, have you heard of Hubert Selby Jr.?
No.
Well, he's a writer. He wrote, how many books he wrote? But I recall the two books that are well known. One is Last Exit to Brooklyn, and the second one, Requiem for a Dream. The movie, originally it's a book and turned to a movie. So his writing style is amazing. What he does is he doesn't add quotation marks in the dialogue when they're talking. It's just a whole paragraph all in like this. And you try to figure out who's talking and what's going on. It's a stream of consciousness, but I like to call it stream of subconscious because it's the subconscious speaking. And it's amazing how you can be free with all these barriers, all these quotations, and all these kind of, just write it down and don't have to feel constrained about how to format it. You just write it. And what he said, what I learned from him is You just don't learn how to write. You just learn how to rewrite. Everybody knows how to write. It's basically talking. Just got to learn how to rewrite it, how to sound. Jesus Louise, I'm telling you, scatterbrain. No, but just how to sound, I guess, not professional, but just real. The characters, these characters got all these different voices, and how to sound, how to, articulate. That's the word, articulate the voice. One voice could be from an Italian voice, and the other one is a Russian voice, and the other one is an Irish voice, and the other one is of a Greek or a Latin person. So what do they sound like, and how can you put it together into these block of paragraphs, even without the little quotes? Now that's a challenge that I like very much, that breaks these barriers, that breaks these blocks, that just, you can be free with the artwork. And it is a work of art indeed. That he did it for me, Hubert Selby Jr. If the only one that influenced me is Hubert Selby Jr., and there's Flannery O'Connor, and there's, everybody likes Bukowski, but I don't know, Bukowski didn't do it for me. For me, it was Hubert. And for me, and now currently my contemporary authors that I enjoy reading is Christopher Seishig. I know I'm going to sound biased because he's my friend, but I love his work. He wrote three. I'm reading his, or autofiction. You ever heard of autofiction?
No.
Okay, it's basically autobiographical and at the same time it's fictional, but it just sounds bizarre. I like to call it friend fiction because you're writing about, it's a fictional story about your friends. But one story, this book called Body to Job, I'm currently reading. I already read the two books called The Magician, and the first one I read, Creation, an Art and Unbecoming. Man, oh man, talk about the bleakest book you ever read. It's quite bleak and funny, surprisingly. You would think the bleak could be that funny, but it's very funny and dark, and sometimes sad. It makes you feel like, should I be reading this? And who am I to be reading this? You know, that kind of voyeurism kicks in. I'm like, I don't know I should be reading this. It's none of my business, but it's one of those things that, it's one of those works that is so good that you feel like you should not be reading. And so that one. Then there's Charlene Elsby, Violent Faculties. And then there's the other one, I'm trying to recall, Thomas More, In Your Dreams. I love that work. What a talent. What a talent indeed. And then there's Max Restaino. Restaino. It's hard to read these little letters, but I think it's Restaino. Coyote. Now that one's good. I like that one. Coyote. And then there's, holy moly, trying to recall another one. Like I said, Scattered Brain.
A lot of good art and writing is often dark and sometimes sad.
And that's,
like your story was pretty unusual.
Unusual indeed. And so those works I like very much. And it's one of those works that it just intrigues me. It could be very dark, but it's quite captivating at the same time. Some people might be off-putting, but I am not. I'm brave enough to read it. I'm brave that way. You have to have courage. You have to have bravery. I don't know. That sounded arrogant, but it's the truth.
What are the qualities you find are most useful for a writer?
Okay. First of all, some people say, tell the truth, just telling the truth. Yeah, that works too, but sometimes you, with your imaginations, you can blend the truth too, meaning you can be fictional. That's why it's called no-brainer fiction. Use your imagination and have fun with it. Just have fun. Don't really think about this is going to be the greatest thing that the world is going to read. No. No, just have fun with the writing. Have fun with the people in the story. Have fun. Live that life. Put on their boots and feel what they feel and think what they think. Be the person in the story. Be the building. Be the environment. You know, I like stories that doesn't have to be conventional, even though I love conventional romance books and conventional horror books or thrillers like James. I have to tell you a funny story. I'm sorry I'm getting off track here, but I'll get back to what I'm going to say. I met a homeless man at the Barnes & Nobles in Delamo. His name is Alan Gottfried, and he's a schizophrenic. And he's quite a critic when it comes to literature. He said he had a degree on literature, so he knows his stuff on literature. I'm not so much knowing my whole SHIT on literature. I may be a mild critic, but I know enough when it's a piece of shit. But I'm not. Anyway, he tells me that he dislikes James Patterson books because it's all the same. Everybody dies at the end. And he says that the only book from Don DeLeo that he likes was Libra because it's quite mundane. He likes that kind of writing, the mundanity. You can find all sorts of interesting things when it's boring, you know, a contrast of sorts. And then he also confessed to me that he dislikes women writers because he's been married to 3 of them, so that's why he hates he hates them. And I said, wow, Alan, geez Louise. I'm glad I made a new friend for a brief time. Man, what a day it was at the Barnes & Nobles. It sure was a pip. And that was the end of it. But man, oh man, it sure was a pip that day. Holy moly.
Your stories are wonderful.
Thank you. But it was amazing. I wonder about him. Sometimes I do think about Alan and some of the people I've come across with. And I wonder how he's doing. Knowing that he's homeless, I either wonder if he's dead or alive.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard life on the streets.
I know. And I do see them. I do see some of them, and sometimes I never see them again.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just one of those things that you can live. And I don't know how. I don't like to get too sentimental, because then when you get too sentimental, and I do, then you go to a whole spiral and emotional whammo, and then you think and think and think, and what's all that thinking going to do? It ain't going to serve anything. It just is for what it is, and all you can do is just live and move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot. And I do get sentimental, I will say, and for good reasons, too. Now, it depends on the mistakes you've made. Now, that's a whole different story.
That's a whole other conversation.
Now, that's a whole different conversation.
All right, Omar. Thank you so much. You're fascinating.
Thank you. Holy moly.
Maybe we'll do this again.
I'd love to. Oh, boy, I'd love to show you the bookstore, Storybooks Cafe, my favorite joint. It's going to be a peppy day.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these 2 books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.